I had some other stuff here about the age of the universe. This is another point where we contend a great deal, but I fear that I've wasted quite a bit of time. So I'm going to have to cut that part short, unfortunately. But a really quick question. Has anyone ever heard, I'm sure you've all heard of the unit light year? I want to be very clear on what the unit light year means, because I've spoken to people who don't know what it means. If something is 1 light year away, it takes 1 year for light to travel from there to here. That is the amount of time it takes light to travel that distance. So if something is 2 million light years away, say a star that you see in the sky, that means it has taken 2 million years for the light from that star to reach us, right? So right away, if we see a star that's 2 million light years away, we basically know the universe is at least 2 million years old. So in fact, what we have is this thing called the Hubble sphere, which is about, I believe, like 13.8 or 13.7 billion light years in radius. And so we know this is basically the age of the universe, the age of the modern universe, because we can see that far, because we know light has been traveling this far for so long. So I hope that I've maybe talked specifically about some things that me and Adam disagree about. But I want to talk about the supernatural in general, because this is a lot more important, I think. I can't go through every instance of where God didn't do something. What I can do is to explain to you why I think that you shouldn't accept that hypothesis unless there's very strong evidence for it, okay? And I want to talk a bit about what kind of evidence is brought forward to support supernatural claims, right? It's not peer-reviewed studies. It's not, it's never presented in the way of like a randomized trial to test, say, a dowsing claim. What it is based on testimony and personal faith and personal conviction. And I want to tell you why you should never, ever, ever accept testimonial evidence for anything, right? Because testimonies are always, always, always out of context. Testimonial evidence comes to you from people for whom something has worked, right? But it doesn't come attached to it with the millions of cases in which, say, prayer didn't save someone, or say, prayer didn't cause one team to win a basketball game, or dowsing couldn't find water, or tarot card reading didn't work. That's why we have tests. That's why we have scientific tests, right? Because scientific tests say, let's look at all the instances that it doesn't work, and let's look at all the instances where it does work. And if it looks like it works more often than randomized trial, or than just random coin flipping, we'll say there's something there. That's the way scientific evidence works, but that's not the way that evidence for the supernatural works. It is always based on something like a strong inner conviction, or testimonies that are not corroborated. Indeed, something that's brought forward quite often is that, randomized trials somehow stop the magic from working. We're talking about something like prayer, on which there have been several control studies, actually, all of them return false results. So, what I suggest to you is that there's no real strong evidence brought forward for supernatural claims. And what I say is that claims that, extraordinary claims, and claims with extraordinary consequences, require extraordinary evidence to be considered in a rational discussion. So with the last few minutes of my speech, I want to try to explain to you why it is that supernatural claims are uniquely extraordinary. Consider what would happen if we admitted supernatural claims into our rational discourse. What that would mean is that there would have to be something capable of suspending the laws of nature and either replacing it with a new set of laws, which we shouldn't then be able to test, or it would be an issue. What's more generally said is that the laws of nature can be suspended in a totally arbitrary way, right? Suspended in a way that accords to the will of some unknowable being, some god, some ghost, some demon, some spirit. So what would be the result if we let this claim into our public discourse? What that would mean for us as a community, as a species, it would be so extraordinary as to essentially do away with the entire enterprise of science. All of inductive reasoning would certainly be gone, because any results that we get could just have been tampered by with this spirit. There was no way for us to know, right? If we run a randomized drug trial, whether or not the drug worked because it works, or whether or not the drug worked because God liked the patients. So this is an extremely extraordinary claim. Modus tollens, the logical argument modus tollens, completely gone. The argument which says that, if something implies something else and we don't see that other thing, then the first thing doesn't exist. That's totally gone. And indeed, we see this all the time when we talk to supernatural people, people who believe in the supernatural. We say, well, you know, if there was a benevolent God, there shouldn't be any terrible disease. But there is terrible disease, so we assume there's no benevolent God. Ah, they say, but God is so mysterious and supernatural, doesn't abide by our laws, and we don't need to follow, you know, that kind of reasoning. God just doesn't need to abide by it. So I want to just restate the fact that these claims are so extraordinary that they do away with the basics of science. They make science impossible on a day-to-day level because you cannot know whether or not God is interfering with the experiment. So in order to accept these claims, we should need an extraordinary amount of evidence, like a lot of it. So much so that we go beyond a shadow of a doubt. I'm not saying that you can't do this. That you can't accept this without evidence. I just want you to know what you forsake if you do, which is the entire, like our entire scientific history. So that my time is up. Hopefully Adam can be the first person to present this kind of extraordinary evidence.